Sunday, April 12th, and a couple days ago, NBC had a journalist go into Cuba to talk to Diaz, the president of Cuba, and it was very much a back and forth between the two. He didn't seem too happy to answer her questions, but she was basically asking him if he would step down as president of Cuba if the US demands. And he responded something like, "Is that your question or is that the State Department's question? And have you ever asked any other president in history to step down?" Things like that. So it was a very hostile interview. But ultimately, what he wanted to say his goals were for the country was to keep the communist system in place and hoping that the United States would not infringe on their government and that they can work side by side, hand in hand, and not overturn the way of government, which is communism, complete control. So we'll see how far it goes because right now, Trump is totally, I believe, winning in Iran, and a lot of other people believe the same thing. The Strait of Hormuz has been a huge topic. A lot of people are speculating that the end goal is not just to get the shipping lanes open, but it's also to make other countries buy oil from the United States as a kind of like alternative to the Strait of Hormuz because gas prices are so high across the United States as well as the world. We have a lot to negotiate because it's almost like negotiating with terrorists because they are terrorists. They sponsor terrorism all over the world. Their demands are so high. The United States government's not going to concede to their demands. So it's just a waiting game to feel if the leadership is going to completely back out and if the leadership is going to completely deny the request of the United States, and then the United States military will continue to take out their leadership. They say that the Ayatollah now, the second in charge, the guy who took over and who is now first in charge, is severely disfigured and even missing a leg. He hasn't been seen in, any press conference or, release after an attack on the compound that he was staying in last week. So the United States is ultimately in control of the situation. And the 2-week ceasefire has been going well. They were sweeping for landmines in the Strait of Hormuz while the ceasefire is taking place. But we're going to see if the ceasefire is going to be permanent or if there's going to be more fighting in the future. And with that said, everything else on the political spectrum that has to do with Iran and Cuba pretty much sums up in those. There's so many great TikToks and YouTube shorts coming out where Cubans are mocking the president of Cuba and actually showing I don't know if you guys ever saw Civil War from 2024 where they raid the Capitol. But yeah, that's basically they're making these AI videos of the United States raiding the capital of Cuba and taking down Diaz, the president. Cubans are saying, take us already. We're wanting to be taken by the United States and become the 51st state. Also, in addition to that, there's a lot of songs being released. There's one that was actually had a Cuban artist singing Cuba's Next. So they're taking the pun and completely running with it, which is great. And I hope that they become U.S. territory or state soon. Now, I want to switch things a little bit. And there was this one cop that I spoke with 2 days ago, and I asked him the simple question that I talked about on this channel, which in my neighborhood, so I live in Davidson County in Nashville, and for about 2 years, I've been really, first of all, concerned, and then really upset that, even during Christmas, driving up almost to the border of Kentucky, seeing 5 or 6 individuals without one headlight, missing headlights. They look like motorcycles, very dangerous. And I said that on this channel that minorities, particularly African Americans, are purposely breaking their headlights and taillights to bait cops, because if the cop pulls them over, they will be accused of racial discrimination and racial profiling, and they will try to sue the cop. And you see that all the time here with racial minorities, like expired tags, busted out headlight, busted out taillight, tinted windows. And I was speculating that they were just poor and they couldn't afford these repairs. Where me, as a white male, if I was driving down like Millersville, which is by Nashville, I got a $275 ticket for not having a tail light, and it wasn't even a warning. But then these individuals can just drive up and down the street and never get pulled over. And the reason why is they are baiting cops. So I talked to this police officer because there's a police convention in Nashville. And I asked, like, are they baiting cops by, purposely not having headlights and smashing out their headlights and driving on expired tags and tinted windows? And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely. Because every police department has money put aside for being sued. And the moment they approach an African American in their car, they could be hit with a racial profiling lawsuit, even if they have probable cause, like no headlight, no taillight. So everything the African American community is doing is in unison, and it's all organized. If there's a memo in the African American community that everyone should drive without headlights or drive without taillights or drive on expired tags or have tinted windows, then the entire community who subscribes to that ideology, which is the BLM ideology, will do it in unison. And that's why when you go from Nashville, you see it. I see it all day long. And then you drive towards Memphis, you hit Jackson, it doesn't happen at all. There's a higher white population. You don't see busted out headlights, busted out taillights, and busted out, expired registration, tinted windows. Then the moment you hit Memphis, the entire culture shifts again to African American culture, and you see busted out headlights, busted out taillights, expired registration, sometimes even 2 years, and every car has tinted windows. And it's all a culture of baiting cops and trying to sue cops if they are pulled over for racial profiling. Now, not everyone in the African American community subscribes to this ideology, but post BLM and the defund the police movement, there's a lot that do. And I'm not afraid to say it, because this police officer said that the only reason there is any issue with the United States government and the police department doing their job is because of defunding. And the defunding is coming from high levels of government like Congress, the defund the police movement. So he said that funding is the only issue that they have, getting the correct equipment and the knowledge that they need to take out these individuals. With that said, there's a lot more. I don't want to go into like conspiracy theories on this channel too much, but I also talked with this lady who worked, her job with the government is to distribute funds that are grants given by the federal government to help the opioid problem in America. And her county, she didn't say which county she was from, but she distributes probably about $700,000 worth of funds to help fight the drug problem, primarily fentanyl. So she brought to me a really, really interesting theory. The theory is that she, honest to God, believes that the United States government is responsible for the entire fentanyl epidemic. Because she asked me, how often have you heard of fentanyl in the last 2 years? It's like it's hardly heard of. And these new drugs that they put on the streets come and go in waves. They last about 3 to 5 years and then they disappear. So she said that what they are doing is they are blaming the drug epidemic on Central and South America, but the actual drug dealers are the United States government. And the entire reason they are bringing these to the streets is to poison and kill minorities, African Americans, and also middle-aged white men who are living with their parents. They say they are the number one recipient of food stamps these days, like 32 to 40-year-olds living with their parents. So what she was telling me is that she has seen that the United States government's the ones who actually put fentanyl on the streets. They blamed it on Central and South America. And then, a couple 100,000 Americans are wiped out. And then all of a sudden, they stop putting fentanyl on the streets because it overwhelms the healthcare system. So the healthcare system in America feeds off of sick people. So what her theory was, the United States government has agents working as drug dealers across America and introduce a new drug called fentanyl. Fentanyl gets people really sick, really messed up, having to go to the hospitals all the time. Eventually, they overrun the system with fentanyl deaths, fentanyl related illnesses. At that point, the government says, enough with this drug. They are causing too much strain on the medical system. So then they cut it off. And then they do something like close the border to Central America, blame it on, Central America. And then at that point, no one hears of the drug anymore because the drug is pulled from the street by the government drug dealers who introduced fentanyl in the first place. So all the fentanyl is pulled from the streets. Everyone goes to rehab. Everyone sings Kumbaya, and then no one hears of fentanyl anymore. And then depending on the administration, now Trump says, oh, it's because of closed borders, which originally Biden, claimed that it was coming from other countries as well. But she was saying once fentanyl has killed enough people, primarily minorities, African Americans, and white men in the ages of 32 to 40 who live at home, once they kill off enough of that population, they switch to the next drug. And the next drug will be introduced and the same cycle will repeat. And then she asked me, how often have you heard of, in the 80s, it was crack? Like, okay, crack was very easy to access, and it was primarily in the African American community. And then they had the Just Say No campaign that just flood the streets, just say no. Okay. Crack was taken off the streets because it was put there by the government to begin with. And every couple of years, it's the same thing with heroin in the early 2000s. Now fentanyl. Now there's a new drug out there on Moxicon or whatever. She was saying that the government's going to try to put this on the street, say it's a drug epidemic until enough people die, and then pull it, and then everyone sings Kumbaya and okay, we've said no to drugs. And then you have another portion who wants to just legalize everything CBDC. So the thing is that was just a theory from her, because she said she saw the entire population stop using fentanyl all at once because the supply was cut off. And she was saying that Central and South America was recovered, and it was actually the United States putting it on the streets, taking it off, and they're going to do that with multiple new drugs in the future. So if anyone watches this video in the future and say that I'm right, yes, let me know. Please comment. Now, the next thing is, I will say I am so anti-marijuana that I would not even buy marijuana stocks. Everyone who tries to say CBDCs do not, are CBD, no, CBDCs are digital currency, sorry. CBD oil does not make you get high. Well, back in 2017, there was these old ladies who I was riding with. They went into a store, they got this. And what they did is they put the CBD oil in vapes, smoked it, and got high. And I tried to tell that to my mom. I tried to tell it to other people. They're like, oh no, they've never done that. You get high off of CBD oil. It's for medicinal purposes, like for your back. Or if you have a sore back, sore hands, whatever, you put it on there and it's done. So that's the gateway, how they bring it to the public, saying, oh, it's medicine, but it's not medicine, because everyone on the streets of Nashville who vape and who want to get high put CBD oil in their vapes and they get high off of it. And it's a thing. So I'm against any marijuana use, any marijuana products, anything. It's a bad thing. And ultimately, a society who's pushing the drug narrative to be mainstream, if what that lady said, which I'm not saying I believe everything that lady says, that's a disclaimer, is true, then how often would that make sense? That one part of the government says fentanyl's bad, don't put it in anything, not even marijuana, because that's where it was laced in. And then the other part of the government's trying to legalize it, legalize marijuana, which is a gateway drug. Everyone knows that. So anyways, guys, yeah, it's good to be a clean whistle. Like I said, I never drank. I'm 32 years old, never had a sip of alcohol, never drank, never done drugs. That's the way to live. If you want to have a clean, sober life, you'll save a lot of money in life, and you'll save a lot of effort and heartache for your friends and family. So let's keep it clean, guys. And yeah, I'd like to say I don't want to be too speculative on this episode, but what she said was pretty shocking, what she believes is going on, and it's on a wide scale. If that's the case, if this new drug comes out and there's a whole drug epidemic again, and then it just disappears overnight, then we know what's going on. So anyways, guys, we'll see you on the next episode of Right Politics. like and share. Have a good one.